Many people assume that what they know to be true must be known by everybody around them, that what they know really matters, and thus everyone must know. Perhaps that is the issue itself, and perhaps our wanting to know can actually cause more problems in attaining knowledge and in sharing it with others. Many people don't want to look at that side of things because for so long we thought that is the way we should do things in our life. And I wouldn't be surprised. This is a Western world type of thinking. The Eastern world, however, tells us something a little different. It tells us to quiet our mind in order to discipline it, to embody ourselves and not just stay stuck in the mind, so that way we can better relax and not worry so much. Because we get so tense and anxious when we worry so much about the future and what might happen, when in reality we don't have much control over the future. Even if we think we do, even if we try to plan it all out, it doesn't go according to plan. And in fact, when we think we have things figured out, it often just tells us the opposite result. When we think we have things right, we end up with a lot of things that are wrong. I mean, we can't fathom the fact that we are not really knowing everything. And we can't know everything. That doesn't mean we don't search for the truth. That doesn't mean that we don't try. Okay, it's about knowing when to try, when to act. Just as the person who does martial arts knows the right time to use the right muscle. And the person who paints the painting is one with the painting. They don't even have to think about it anymore. It becomes effortless. And I think the goal for truth, if we want to say we want to live with truth, it's to have an effortless embrace of it. Well, despite all this that I mentioned, and I talked about in previous videos, the problem with knowledge, and I try to always open people's minds to new information, including myself, which means I constantly am questioning my own belief system. I have to do this, and I don't even want to call it belief system. I want to have knowledge. I want to have a ground to stand on. I want to have principles. But I have to be able to look at so many different sides and so many different angles in order to do that. But not just all the different perspectives, but nature itself, the deep down original reality, because all what you may call principles could just be symptoms. They're of that original reality. And you're still not looking at the truth, even if you think you are. That's the nature of illusion. So how do you know what's actually truthful? Or what if you're just stuck in an illusion? I think this is something that a lot of people don't talk about, especially in the truth or freedom movement. Do you think they're going to be talking about, spiritual, moral, philosophical ideas? It's maybe much easier to talk about voting and what exact procedures we must do, what protest we must hold. We need to blame this group of people, that type of mindset. And I don't like to do that, actually. Like I said, I'm constantly questioning myself. And if I think that someone else is wrong, the most I can do is question and let them do the rest on their own. Because I can't take that truth journey for them. I understand my own limits and I understand when I should act. Because I understand that if you have knowledge that can be very off-putting for some people, and a lot of people, there needs to be an approach, an intelligent approach to that situation. Because if you claim that you're intelligent in the knowledge that you have, what about the action that brings that knowledge into manifestation? I think that's a whole different scenario. And it's part of the reason why I've developed so many systems to help people do that. The Liberator 2 being an expressive outlet. You don't have to watch this video. You click on it because you're interested. You want to learn. And because you voluntarily chose to do so, I didn't throw it in your face. Now, I do use a little bit of clickbait. That's because it's kind of the nature of the internet. I'm not just doing it because other people are doing it, but because I think it's actually an important message. What I'm sharing, I think, is rather important. But you don't have to agree with me. And the fun, beautiful thing about this life is that everybody can disagree with each other, and people will always be people. And if we can accept actually our differences and accept the fact that there is divisions, guess what? You have unity. So in the acceptance of the vision, you have unity. I think that's amazing. But I know this is not the topic of this video, but it is a precursor. Because what matters is what you don't see. When it comes to our thoughts and how we innovate and how we break our own barriers in our own head, We do exactly that. We bring up new things, or things we don't expect, or things that challenge us that we don't want to look at. We face our own shadows, the things that appear to us so often that are saying, we need to pay attention to this, and we keep trying to distract ourselves and say, no, I don't need to look at this. I don't need to pay attention to it. It's clearly giving you a sign. It's like your body giving you acne, or you're getting sick over and over again. I put a little message on my channel. I said, if you're still getting sick, fix your diet. Because I don't get sick. And there's a lot of people who don't get sick because they eat healthy, or they eat in a way where they're not eating something so obtrusive to their nature, something that's going to cause a lot of problems. And that's what happens ultimately. You get sick, it's because something bombarded, and so your body needs some downtime. You need some rest, essentially. Now, a lot of people may pop open a pill, but that's not necessarily the case. Maybe your body just needs rest. Maybe it can heal through other modalities, right? I'm always trying to find a way in which the mind can open. So I'm no exception, because the mind, you have a mind, everybody has a mind. I'm not saying my mind is better. I'm just saying we all have fellow minds, right? So this act of comparison between other people is also an act of ego. And that is something we can also be aware of, the psychological parts of humanity. How often are people in the freedom, truth community talking about psychology? Wouldn't that be important, especially if you're going around blaming and saying that these people are doing some bad things? See, here's the reality. There's people who follow my work, and if you're one of these people, that's okay, but they spam on my channel, they spam on my works, they spam me in private messages or whatever. And I don't block them, I just let them be. I know if I block them, it could be actually worse, the scenario. Now, I still listen, I still actually see what people send me, but at the same time, I realize, I'm like, why are these people so adamant about their way of thinking? They're so stuck on what they think they see. But don't they see that this life is cyclical, or that there's a huger, bigger picture to be seen? Don't they see that what they see is only one part of it? That if they do want to share something that other people don't see, they have to give credence and value to that, because they were once in that person's shoes themselves. So what matters is what they don't see, the other person. Because if you want a truth to come to light, you need other people to share that truth with you. You need to bring the light to the darkness. So the darkness matters in that case. Not so much the light, but the darkness. Not to mention, but if you're saying that we're indoctrinated, or there's a lot of barriers in the way of our original nature and who we are meant to be, you're saying there's a bunch of things in the way. So it's what we don't see that we're trying to attain, because we're being distracted and bombarded with all the things we do see. Furthermore, when you look at all the symptoms and all the things that rise to the surface, all the news stories that appear in front of your face, what if there's a truth behind those? Well, you don't see it, but it's more powerful because it's the roots. It's what's not being said. It's what nobody's paying attention to, and that's why the problems keep happening. And that's why there continues to be more division. See, it's all about what we don't see. In this room that I'm in, the usefulness of this room is in the emptiness. In this glass, I have matcha. I love matcha, right? It's green tea, basically. Green tea leaves that are grounded up, used for a drink, okay? And I don't, do too many plant-based drinks and stuff like that, but when I do matcha. I sound like the alcohol commercial. But the usefulness of this glass is in the emptiness of the glass. The same thing with the straw. The same thing with literally anything. My ability to breathe relies on the fact that I can take an inhale first before I exhale. My ability to gain muscle relies on the fact that I have to rest in order to gain muscle, or in order to work out to begin with. The value in not doing is much greater than that of doing. But even though I call it greater, let's not forget about the action part of it either. Because many people might get stuck on saying, well, then I should just do nothing at all. No, there is a time of action. The problem is in the Western world is we're so focused on action that for us, the downtime is only vacation, alcohol, drugs, games, sports. But is that actually going to, one, fulfill us? Is it going to keep us in a distracting, dopamine loop? Is it actually going to heal us? Is it actually going to bring us back up in our energy? Because you can see all throughout America, there's people who are overweight. Even though they're doing nothing, they are gaining weight. Even though they take a lot of breaks, they find themselves with not a lot of energy. And so it's like, what's going on here? Or they can't even sleep to begin with. They can't even know how to rest. They don't even know how to do nothing. This generation needs to always be doing something on their phone or something on technology. I mean, it's insane. It's almost as if we want to ignore the darkness, either in ourselves, our own traumas, or the things that we just don't see in other people, in ourselves, or in the truth. It's always the empty, the useless, the darkness, the hidden that matters, the hidden knowledge. Mark Pasio talks about very much in his works, right? Somebody, a spiritual teacher, who talks about the reason why there's a power differential in the world where certain few people control masses of people is because those masses of people don't have certain knowledge. Knowledge is power, we say. So if certain people have that knowledge and they keep that away from the masses, well, then the masses can never empower themselves to be free. And so that's very powerful. Again, what they don't see. Take another example, influencers online. A lot of them hide their true self. They don't want to essentially be completely honest. And in that process, it actually backfires on them. Over time, as they find themselves putting on a show or a facade, or naturally over time, because the world corrupts them due to their abnormal amount of influence due to technology, they become less of themselves, and they don't know who are themselves. And so this sort of hidden part of them takes a toll on them, and that's why some of them might straight up just commit suicide or go on drugs because they have the money to do so or whatever. I mean, you see it time and time again, all through society, the struggles that people have due to the darkness or the hidden aspects of society, which Carl Jung talks about. He calls it shadow work. Right? But let's not just limit it to that. Taoism has been talking about it for thousands of years, and Carl Jung said, Taoism is one of the perfect interpretations I've ever seen of truth, if I can call anything perfect. The Tao says itself that it can't be perfectly said in words because our words are limited. Since when does any religion or philosophy tell us that we can't listen to its own philosophy or it's not complete? This is why I like Taoism, because it doesn't claim to have the answers. It doesn't claim to know how the world works or what should be done or that everybody must know this. It understands a greater worldview. Part of the reason why I like the spiritual communities more than any other community online or in general is because people are way less pushy and way more conscious of what they're doing. Even if they may not be partaking in action like some people may want them to do, is it really a bad thing if they don't take any action? Unless, of course, they are still partaking in immoral action, but that's then action, right? So I think it's all about then conscious action, knowing what's the right action and just knowing when to act. And I talk about this, I call it time and place. And when you think before you act, is that not a time of silence? Is that not a time of seeking what you did not see? Because you're not being distracted, you're not working, you're not doing the things in your day-to-day life, you are taking time for yourself. And we know time heals all wounds, we know time tells us truth over time, and this is why when people rush into relationships or they rush into their scenarios, or they think that they have the truth figured out, in reality, nature just laughs and says, silly humans. Basically, that's nature's response. If you had to personalize it, I think it's quite funny. But you can look at this through intent as well. It's not necessarily what you see, but in person's intent, the way I look and the way I express myself and the physical actions, where's the intent? What's the motive behind the actions? What's the belief system behind the actions? That is the root cause to the problem. If you see in many different court cases and justice settlements that people have between peoples, people are always looking at where's the intent? Was there criminal intent? Was there a person trying to do wrongdoing? Did they realize it was wrong? That's all what we don't see with the eyes. It's something that we can come to hear over time, but it's something in our hearts. This is why we have a conscience and why it's so hard to describe it. This is part of us that some people equate the heart with the soul with, and some people even equate the heart with the mind. Shin in Chinese, right? So amazing. Morality as well. I mean, morality, it's invisible. It's not something you see, it's something you feel. And yet it's something that really sways people, because if a politician or anybody can get on stage and just change people's hearts, it doesn't matter what is seen. It doesn't matter what's put out there physically. They got people's minds enslaved. They got people's minds enwrapped. And because of that, it doesn't matter what happens. They can do ultimately anything. And the Jones Plantation movie says this quite well. It says that as long as the mind is enslaved, physical slavery is essentially inevitable. And Martin Luther King Jr. said this, Mahatma Gandhi said this, many different philosophers all throughout history. Take for another instance, you look at viruses and EMF. Oh my gosh, there's this invisible thing that we have to worry about. So we're basically putting the fear inside our own heads, and we're creating problems that may not even exist because it's in our own head, or because we believe it, or because we believe it so much, even if it is true. And so we can take that to an extreme, and we can take literally anything to an extreme. We can take truth seeking to an extreme, in the sense that, again, we hold on to our position so much. I want this to be seen. And in the process, you lose what actually got you to that position, which was you opening your mind to what is unseen. So if you want other people to do the same, it's realizing that hidden value in the hidden. And so what about EMFs? What about the technology and all the waves and all the frequencies and vibrations? That's all invisible. What about the molecules and how everything is constantly vibrating and moving around us and nothing is actually truly solid? That's all invisible, but it doesn't make it not real. And so if that's something we do see over time using instrumentation, just imagine what we don't see in reality. In reality, past reality, it's seeing more and more and more. The only way we see more is by inventing something new with something that was already here. And creating something new requires looking at what we don't currently see. And then we do that to find more of what we don't currently see. So the hidden gives way to the hidden, right? And yet you're bringing light to all of it by simply acknowledging it, by coming to understand it. You're bringing light to it and therefore fulfilling a balance. Because there's a reason why we think, there's a reason why we act, and then we just need to realize that we have a brain too. We don't just have instincts. We have a heart too. We don't just have instincts. We have a conscience. We don't need to simply act out of pure instinct. We have morality. We have the ability to think through our actions, what's actually going to be right for the whole scenario, so that way chaos doesn't ensue and then we end up hurting ourselves. This is the golden rule. This is all philosophies, and you can see where they all come in together. But if you're ignorant, you're ignoring what is there, and therefore you want something to be hidden, but you don't acknowledge the hidden, so you never bring the light to the darkness. Guess what? You're in an imbalance. You basically ignore the yin. You ignore the yin, the value in yin, the value in hidden, the value in the darkness. And then you end up with a shadow over yourself you don't see, and then you end up living in a shadow of yourself, which is a false reality. You end up creating an illusion, even if that wasn't your intention. And so bring your intention to light by, if you want to create truth, if you really are a truth seeker, then what is the concept of truth? It's what we currently don't know. It's what we currently want people to know. Well, what is that? It's what we don't currently see. And so don't get stuck, because I think a lot of people do. Don't say this is the way to do things, because that's not the only way to do things. There's a reason why I've always been of an inventor or innovator mindset of trying to create new things and think of new ideas. It's because I constantly challenge myself, and I never stay stuck on one way of thinking or one way of doing things. Say, for instance, I'll give up another example for this video, TV or phone. What you're actually looking at is nothing. I mean, I'm literally looking at a piece of material, a wall. I'm looking at a phone. It's a piece of material, which looks like something, but in reality, it's not actually the thing. you're looking at pretty much nothing, or at least a lesser form of a actual thing. Let's say I'm looking at a person on my phone, or a person through the screen like you're doing right now. And this is why the TV and the phone is ultimately the most dangerous for your mind, because it can essentially replicate reality, but through a screen. And then you can think that screen is your reality in the case of virtual reality. I mean, it literally says it in the name. Like, what gives it away? But yet people are okay with that. And I'm not saying to not be okay with that. I'm telling you to see the bigger picture, to see beyond it. To see that there's a reality beyond it, because many people can grow up into an illusion. It doesn't matter what illusion it is, not just TV or phones, and they can accept that as truth if they do not see what is beyond it, what is the roots. And I talk about this often on my channel, because again, that's how you innovate, that's how you see the bigger picture. So realizing when you're looking at nothing, or you're looking at an illusion, knowing that it's an illusion, you can then see the truth. The same way if you're looking at something like a yang-based world, you say, okay, this is action, this is distraction. Well, what's the opposite of action? It's inaction. So you can do this simple little experiment with yourself and always ask yourself, what's the opposite? So you think a food is good. Well, then purposely research what makes it bad. So you think an ideology is good. Well, purposely research what makes it bad. And if you do this consistently, you'll find out nothing is so actually perfect as people may want it to be, and that everything is sort of perspective dependent, which is a beautiful thing, because life breeds on that. Life is designed like that. It is so complex that we're constantly to figure it out. And then when we limit our experimentation, we limit our science, and then we can't find more because we ultimately limited ourselves. We didn't have to do that. So the best thoughts, I mean, even thoughts like this, where do they come from? They literally come from out of nowhere, right? Where did the earth come from? Where did all this stuff come from? We call it spontaneity. In Taoism, it's Wu Wei, spontaneous action. These things just happen on their own. You know, Carl Jung talks about this too, with spontaneity, and talking about synchronicity and how it's different from cause and effect and, you know, determinism, and God has a plan and everything set up as a plan. It's like a mix between both the randomness and the determinism. So that's an amazing perspective, which I don't see a lot of people talking about. Sort of like finding that mid-ground, which you can only find that middle if you've seen both parts of the picture. That means you see the hidden, you see what is not there. And if you want to keep expanding and keep seeing more, then you're not set, even when you think you have it all figured out. Because the minute you are set, you create a box. And I've done this before in my videos, but you have a circle, right? The circle has no edges. You look at the yin-yang symbol, no edges. It's perfect. It's one whole unity, okay? But when you want to say this is reality, you set it in a box. And that box cannot fulfill that circle. So here's that box inside of the circle. There's gaps. Okay, so you expand your box. Guess what? Still not a circle. Guess what? Still not a circle. Guess what? Still not a circle. You find yourself constantly needing to expand. And if you aren't willing to expand, nature will make you expand by, over time, experience and understanding that, oh wait, I was wrong. Oh wait, nobody's listening to me. Oh wait, I'm causing more conflict. Some people may never come to that realization, but a lot of people will, one way or another. And that's because of this hidden value in the hidden, the unknown. Okay, so like I said, the best thoughts come out of nowhere. I mean, you can be in the shower, you can be in the bathroom, unexpected, taking a walk in the park, and all of a sudden some idea comes out of nowhere and you're like, oh shoot, before bed, right? These are very common for a lot of individuals. I know this. I talk to people, this is what they say, and this is also my own experience. It's like, I can't help it. I have to stay up because I have to write all these thoughts down, because I know if I don't write them down, I'll probably forget. They come in a flash of light in a moment, out of literally nowhere, because I was able to open my mind for once. I wasn't so stuck. And so don't let your beliefs, don't let your heart get the best of you, you know? Have your head not too hard-headed, have your heart not too open-hearted, right? And this is the key. So you can look at water as an example if you want to look at nature. In the smallest essence, it appears to be nothing. You try to pick up water, you can't actually grasp it. So you try to pick up truth, you can't grasp it. It always seems to fall out of your grasp. But nonetheless, it is so essential for everything in life. Most of everything in life is made of water, and yet it can also destroy pretty much everything, even chip away at rock, right? So water is quite a magnificent thing, and yet, you observe the waves, you go to the beach, it's quite still, and you see a reflection when it is still, and then the mud settles to the bottom. You also see that when it's flowing, it goes to the lowest surface. So instead of reaching high positions in power like humans do, water always seeks the lowest place. And by doing so, it actually becomes an underminer of all the systems that be, and makes everything dependent on it because it's at the roots, quite literally. And so water is actually said to be an analogy for the Tao, or yin itself in Taoism. And again, Taoism is an ancient philosophy 2,000 plus years ago. I think it's so powerful because it's just some guy, Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi, some old masters, fellow human beings, not claiming to be special, just saying, hey, I'm going to write some poetry for you about the reality of this universe. And I know a lot of people are not going to understand this. And I know that words are going to be somewhat lost in translation. But this is knowledge that really nobody can disagree with. Even science today can agree with a lot of the things that they said because, hey, it's just talking about reality and how it works. But with that, understanding what can't be seen and the problems with knowledge, which a lot of people in science just won't look at. And so if you're always looking for what isn't being currently seen, I think you are truly a truth seeker. And I think you will find what is most valuable in this life. So those two main questions I'll leave you on, right, is next time you're evaluating something, where's the emptiness? Where's the uselessness lie? Because that might be actually where it's very, very much useful. And the other question is, well, that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you the question, just as much as I probably shouldn't tell you the answers. Because in order to attain an answer, you have to be asking yourself a question. And I understand that there's people who can come to these communities, former druggies, former people who have struggled with all sorts of conditions, and I welcome you. I don't care who you are, okay? As long as you do not harm others, and as long as you have a personal yearning for the truth, I think we all have a place here. We all have experiences that we can leverage to share with our fellow man, to help our fellow man. And we realize it's all for this greater purpose. So that purpose would be a better world for all of us and for the future and for a greater destiny, that is the human race. So, I'm just going to leave you on a cliffhanger like that because I want you to realize that the answers should not come from me, and nor should the questions. You can come up with all the questions on your own, and thus you can also find all the answers on your own. It's just a matter of you really believe in yourself to do so, but don't just believe in it. You have the capabilities to do so. Many people want to say they don't, and then of course you're not going to find it. Of course you're not going to use it. You put yourself down, of course you're not going to be up with all the others that you claim are up there, right? I think everybody has such great potential. Don't put yourself down. Don't, push other people down. People make judgments of others all the time. They don't know who they are. They never lived in their body once in their life. I mean, it's amazing and astonishing how much people are quick to assume and apply the yang on top of the yin, create an extreme and imbalance so willingly without realizing that the yin has so much more power that if they were actually open, they'd learn from individuals more than if they actually created a judgment of them. Not only that, but they would not be projecting so much in the case of their judgment being wrong. Thank you very much for watching. This is Corey Edmund Nature is the Answer.